California, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Financial Compass, the show that's dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is Chris Bowman. He is a founder and financial advisor at Bowman Wealth Group, and Scott Vallon, financial advisor. Chris, Scott, friends, it's great to be back with you. How are you this week?
Good. I was joking with Chris. I have all the lines from Annie stuck in my head because my daughter, who's 9, she's going to audition for a role.
Oh,
so she's been saying all the lines. And
Would you like to audition here on TV?
Sing for us a little bit.
I'll see how many I can work into tonight, into our conversation today.
There we go.
See if I pass.
Well, you know, this kind of is a segue. The sun will come out tomorrow, right?
It is a hard
we
knock
have
life.
to plan for the future. Nice.
Yeah, let's keep kicking that one. I'll see.
I'm going to use it anytime you come in with a tough day. I'll just start singing.
Just play the piano line.
There you go. Aw. Well, we like to have a lot of fun on this show, but we talk about a lot of serious subjects. Your retirement, your hard-earned money. How do you make sure that you are going to be successful in retirement? And if you've ever asked yourself the question, what kind of retirement do I want to have, and how much income do I need in order to make that happen? You are not going to want to miss today's show, because we are going to be talking all about income planning. This is what you all specialize in doing, and it's interesting because the three of us were just in a recent conversation with someone who said, you know what, we hear this term income planning a lot. Yeah. What does it actually mean? So can we start with that? Because I think there can be a lot of misconceptions out there, and we want to just be very clear what we're referring to when we talk about building an income plan.
Yeah. So I always like to use analogies, and think of it like this. Imagine we're in Alaska. It's the summer. We're chopping all this wood down and stacking it up. Eventually, you're going to need to turn that wood into fire to warm you during the winter. And it's the same way, in a way, with saving money. We're saving money, all of us, into these accounts, from a 401k and an IRA. All these investment accounts, building that stack of firewood. Mm-hmm. But eventually, that firewood needs to become the fire that we live off through our retirement. Mm-hmm. But that's just one part of what's in an income plan. It's not just the investment. Sometimes people will come up and throw down their portfolio and say, here's my income plan. I said, well, that's the kindling for it, or the firewood, but that's not the income plan. There's other factors. So obviously, like we said, there's the investments, but there's Social Security. How does that fit in? When do I start it? How is it taxed? Did I even know it's taxed? Maybe we have a pension. We have a lot of clients with pensions. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of clients that have real estate where there's rental income. It's like all these jigsaw puzzles, we're putting them together to form your picture. And again, as we've talked about on past shows, the biggest fear for retirees is running out of money. Mm-hmm. So how do we make sure that we don't? How do we make sure that doesn't happen with those pieces? Again, as a reminder, investments, Social Security, pension, inheritance, taxes, inflation. How does it all fit together? That's part of what we're doing in an income plan. It's not up to you to figure out. That's up to us to help you figure it out. And income planning is so important, and that's really the pieces that put it together.
Thank you so much for that explanation. And I love analogies too. It's almost like, as you were talking about puzzle pieces, you're inviting folks to come in and take their puzzle pieces, dump them out on your desk, right? Yeah. And then it's your job to figure out, okay, how do these all fit together? Because we always say it on the show, how you make a decision in one area of your financial life does and will affect all of the others. And so one of the things I think is interesting too is a mindset shift that happens for folks as they approach and enter retirement. For many people, they've been focusing on getting the largest income possible during their working years. What's the shift that happens though between that accumulation phase when they start entering distribution phase and it's time to convert that accumulated wealth into an income plan?
Yeah, it's a great question. And going back to your jigsaw puzzle, some people come in with puzzles. You've seen those puzzles with 1,000 pieces.
Yes.
And then you see puzzles with 25 pieces.
Right.
Everyone has a different puzzle.
That's so true.
Right? So when people come in and you have one puzzle, your plan is going to be different than someone else. And sometimes people will say, well, I was talking to my friend and they said, don't ever do this, do this. And I was like, well, do you know their puzzle? Their puzzle's different than yours. So be careful who you're taking advice from, because everyone has a different puzzle.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, when we're working, we want to get the largest paycheck that we can get, right? If we're working for an employer, we own a business, we want the biggest income we can get. and we're going to pay taxes on that, right?
Right.
But when we retire, we now have a choice. And sometimes people come in and say, well, I make $20,000 a month. That's what I need to keep making. And I said, well, do you? What are your expenses? Well, $5,000. Well, why do we need to make $20,000? Do you want to keep paying taxes at the same level you've been paying taxes? When you get that last paycheck, guess where the next paycheck comes from? You, your own retirement, your own nest egg, along with pensions and real estate and those other things.
Right.
So we need to identify how much money do you need to live on, and that's the amount we want to take. We don't want to take a dollar more than that, because guess what? We're going to pay taxes on every dollar we take. So why not leave the other money growing and doing what it's supposed to do and take it when we need it? And believe it or not, that's a concept that a lot of people, it's not familiar. And so we really go through and try to help people understand the last paycheck that they're going to get and the next paycheck and how they need to differ for longevity purposes and for tax purposes.
Absolutely. Well, and to that point, I think it's so important to point out, you were talking earlier, Scott, about all the different kinds of income that people can have coming in. Developing a withdrawal strategy of how you're going to get that income for yourself, because you have to know, okay, what amount do I need to withdraw from which place, which account? And you want to make sure you're doing it in the most tax efficient manner possible.
Well, yeah, it seems so simple and arbitrary, but yeah, just boiling it down to that level is, okay, where do I pull from first has a huge effect on our taxes and the style of the account. Say we're pulling from any number of investment accounts, each one has a different tax ramification, and there's generally a good order in which to do it. And depending on what you have, that's something that we could sit and chat about. It's like, I've got these accounts, different types, which one do I pull from first? Well, here's when we sit down to start working on the plan, we can start to see and map that out and walk you through that in terms of, what account is coming from, or what money is coming from what account, and what does it mean for my taxes, and how can I be as efficient as I can be? As Chris said, why would we pay more in taxes than we have to?
Absolutely.
And if these are questions that you've asked yourself of, well, I don't want to pay more in taxes, or where's my money coming from, or when do I take Social Security? How do I turn this investment into income? Then call the number and schedule a time. We'll have our complimentary, no obligation financial compass review. If you've got $500,000 or more of investable assets, schedule a time and we'll talk, and we'll do a risk analysis, see where your risk stands. We'll start looking at an income analysis of where's the money coming from now, plus all the other pieces of the financial compass, and we'll sit down and see if it can offer value to you.
Wonderful. Scott, Chris, thank you so much. To our viewers at home, that number to call to get your own complimentary financial compass review is there on the bottom of your screen, 888-970-4685. You're also welcome to take out your smartphone, and you can simply scan that QR code that's down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and a member of the team from Bowman Wealth Group will be able to reach out to you to schedule your complimentary appointment that way as well. We have a lot more to cover on today's show. We're going to be talking about some important variables that you need to take into consideration when building your own income plan, and Chris and Scott are going to help us navigate that right after this.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
Welcome back to Your Financial Compass. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined by Chris Bowman and Scott Vallon, who are helping us navigate through the complexities of your retirement, specifically income planning. I love a tagline for the show is don't just have a portfolio, have a plan, right? That's what it means to have a solid income plan in place. I want to talk a little bit about your process for how you go about doing this for folks, because we know that it can be very overwhelming, especially for today's modern retiree. Retirement today is very different than it was for our parents, our grandparents. There's so many more challenges we need to navigate. One of them being we are living longer than we ever have before, which means we've got to plan for this income to last for an even longer period of time. So with all these different variables to consider, how does Bowman Wealth Group simplify this process for your clients?
It's a great question. I'm going to kind of lay out the very simplistic form first, and then we'll kind of break it down and get into it.
Great.
But financial planning is complex, and we use softwares, and we use different analysis and calculators and put it all together. But sometimes I've had people come in, $5 million, $7 million, former business owners, CEOs, and I'll show them what we call our bucket approach strategy, and we use safety, income, growth, 3 different buckets.
Safety, income, growth.
And
SIG, that's a
SIG,
good way to
yeah,
remember it,
yes.
right?
Yeah, and I just show them how we'll use each bucket for different purposes, for different lengths of time, for different points in life. And I've literally had people say, that's what I want. They snap a picture and they say, can I take that home? Or if I drew it on a piece of paper, can I please take that home? And so we do it on our iPad now, and now I can just email it or print it off and give it to them. But behind the scenes, there's a lot more that goes into it when we do the plan. But
sure.
safety, income, growth is a great visualization for our clients to just understand how we're going to do things, and again, remove that fear and uncertainty for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, and for the rest of their lives.
And it's almost like the Cliff Notes version of the financial plan, where, just removing all the jargon. So, Chris mentioned the safety, income, growth. Safety bucket, surprise, surprise, is the safe money. This might be something as basic as money sitting in cash. Is there enough money to cover, the AC went out, the tires went out, I need a new roof.
Life happened.
Life happens. This is a life happens, oh no account, where we need to make sure that we have enough there, because we'll have someone come in, they might have, as Chris referenced, $5 million, and they've got $5,000 in cash. It's like, well, we need a tax-efficient place to pull money from in those moments. So sometimes we have people with too much money in that safety bucket. Sometimes there's not enough, and it's just a matter of finding out, A, is there enough in there? It fills the role of safe. Generally, it's cash. It's not going to lose, but it's also readily accessible.
That's so important. So the safety bucket, and I love that you pointed out that money has certain jobs to do for folks.
Yeah.
We hear that adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And it's true with your money, right? Because your money has different roles and responsibilities. So we've talked about that safety bucket. So now let's talk about the income bucket.
Yeah, so the income bucket is where we're going to pull the income. So if someone were to come into me and say, we're heading into retirement, we need $120,000 a year to live on, we need $10,000 a month, then we begin to break that down. So maybe we're going to get $50,000 from Social Security, $30,000 from pensions, so we need another $40,000 a year. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have 10 years worth of that $40,000 or $400,000 that is growing, is staying ahead of inflation, but also we're going to be using that for income. So for the next 10 years, we're pulling income, all of our income, from buckets that will never drop. That's the idea. And what happens is, the rest of it, we'll talk about the growth bucket in a minute, but the rest can go into the growth bucket.
Right.
And what that allows you to do is to live your life and have the lifestyle you want within that $10,000 a month or 20, whatever it is, and never have to worry about what's happening in the market. Because the market, we'll talk about, the growth bucket's for later. It's 10 years down the road. We've got 10 years to let that do what it needs to do. But the income bucket, no matter what happens with Russia and Ukraine and China and Taiwan and geopolitical events and presidential elections, UFOs, we have a good time with that one.
Right.
All of those things, they won't impact your income stream. They won't impact your lifestyle. And we've got 10 years worth of time built in that third bucket for that money to grow, which we'll take some of that, carve it out, put it into the income bucket. And when people see this, and we obviously draw it out for them and break it down even more,
Right.
it gives a sense of comfort, a sense of there's a plan in place, removes the fear and uncertainty for the future. And I could tell so many stories about clients that even retired just, let's say, end of 2021. 2022 was a horrible year for a lot of people. But people with this approach, they never have to worry, because we're not pulling any money from that account that's
That's
having
losing
some
money.
volatility.
Right. Yeah.
None. So how much faster can an account come back if we never pulled money from it? A lot faster. And we are only pulling the income from the bucket that can't go down.
Yeah,
So it
sure.
works fantastic for people. They love it. Again, what we enjoy doing is just providing that sense of comfort that they're going to be okay. And when we build plans this way, they work. People sleep at night, and we love it. We love what we do.
And as Chris said, the safety income buckets are the first two. Right. Those are what we call the current lifestyle buckets. As Chris said, that's the next 10 years. Do we have the next 10 years mapped out? And that's where the growth bucket comes in, because if the average retirement is 30 years approximately, well, we need to map out years 11 through 30. So we need some money that's outpacing inflation, that's getting growth, but also we know is on the sideline sitting there growing, because eventually once our safety and income buckets, we've passed that 10 years, year 11 is where we maybe start diverting some of that money from that growth bucket. But in the growth bucket could be those investment accounts, your 401k, your IRA, regular investment accounts, any number of different things within it in terms of, you know, mutual funds and exchange traded funds and all the funny frilly words. But as Chris was starting to touch on, where folks got in trouble in 2022 is when they didn't have the bucket approach and it wasn't balanced properly for their situation, and money that they were losing in the growth bucket, they were also using as the income bucket.
Yes.
And it makes it that much more stressful.
Yeah.
And it's already stressful to be losing money when the market is down, but when that same money you're using it to live your day to day, it's a double whammy.
Oh, it's so stressful.
So it alleviates a bit of the stress of knowing, as much as it stings to see that money and see the account drop a bit, when we have everything mapped out, you can say, hey, that's money I'm not touching for a while.
Right.
It's not going to hurt as much because I have this, you know, in its proper proportion for your situation. I think we'll talk more on it later about what does it mean? Is it different for each person? But that's just sitting it, taking a step back, and mapping the things out. What role does it play? Does it fit in the safety bucket, income, or growth? And if any of this stuff we're talking about resonates and you've got $500,000 or more of investable assets and you want to learn more or see how this might pertain to you, then call the number and schedule a time for your complimentary financial compass review. There's no obligation. We'll sit down and chat. We'll do a risk analysis of your money in the growth bucket. We'll do an income analysis. Do we have enough money in that income bucket? But also the other steps of the financial compass. And we'll start to put all these pieces together, but it all starts with the conversation. And that's what you can do is schedule a time to start that process and have a talk.
Wonderful. Scott and Chris, thank you so much. You know, as you were talking, Scott, it reminded me that you don't want to have a leaky bucket. That's what you're talking about, right? You want
Certainly
to make
not.
sure. Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. So if you're at home and you're wondering, gosh, maybe you don't have a bucket strategy, or maybe you've never thought of it this way, or you're wondering, yeah, I have that leaky bucket and you want to plug it up, give the team at Bowman Wealth a call, 888-970-4685 to get your own complimentary financial compass review. Or you're welcome to take out your smartphone, scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. Again, this is for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how the team at Bowman Wealth can help and serve you. More on today's show about building an income plan right after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to Your Financial Compass. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with Chris Bowman and Scott Ballon from Bowman Wealth Group. And before the break, we were talking about, we were kind of joking, but serious too, about not having a leaky bucket when it comes to your income plan. And you made a really good point during the break that I would love for you to share with our viewers about that growth bucket in particular.
Yeah, and like we were saying, it comes down to the timing element of it. And we know because it's a growth bucket, some of that money is going to be invested in the market. We know it's going to fluctuate up and down. If we also know we're not going to be tapping into that money for 9, 10, 12 years, in an instance like 2022 when the market's down, we don't rush in to change it. Maybe we make a little tweaker here or there, but that's not when we panic because we have the other buckets set up proportionally. We always know that the market historically comes back to an all-time high. The darkest day always happens right before the sunniest
sun will
one.
come out
the
tomorrow.
sun will come out. There we finally worked in some.
It is a hard
jokes.
knock life.
There we go.
It's a hard knock life. That I'm not sure how it was a hard knock when last year when the market was down.
Yes.
But it's understanding that we don't panic in those times. We don't pull our money out and freak
Right.
out. So just having that balance there helps maybe remove the fear and tendency to want to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll just, to piggyback on that, we have clients that retired in 2021,
Yes.
and we talk to them about sometimes the next day after you invest with us, the market can go down. We don't have any control over that. But when we have a plan in place, we don't need to panic as well. And a lot of clients that retired in 2021 didn't panic in 2022. Matter of fact, we have a 10-year roadmap here. We've got a 10-year runway of income already planned that lifestyle can't be altered by the market. And we also know historically the market always comes back to an all-time new high. It never has
Right.
not.
Yep.
So it gives us comfort in the other bucket, in the growth bucket. And also clients that haven't retired yet, but watch how the markets work and know how we manage money, also know that as they were going through 2022, they weren't stressed because they know they can picture themselves in that position. What if I had retired? I would have been fine.
Right.
And it makes them feel better about the future and the plan that we have in place for them as well.
Absolutely.
And another thing to mention, in terms of Chris referenced clients of ours that were retired in 2021. Well, what about the folks that were retiring, 5 years from now? Where I'm going with this is it's not a one size fits all.
Correct.
Each plan is unique. I'm 43, so my bucket setup is going to be totally different than, say, our client who's 63. So it's also understanding it's dynamic and it's unique to the individual. And that's where, as we find out your situation, how much money do you need, and what the goals are, then that's what really starts to dictate what falls into what bucket.
I know you guys have a wealth of client stories and you've worked with so many individuals and been able to help so many people in this space. Does anyone come to mind where you're like, wow, this income planning strategy and being able to enact this for them really changed their life?
Yeah, for sure. I was just sharing the one story. These are some clients that retired in California, moved to Florida, and every time we talk a lot about relationships here, and every time they call or text the office, it's not about their accounts. It's sharing what meal they're eating. It's sharing where they're traveling with their 80-year-old father. It's traveling. And those are the types of relationships that we have, and we have that because there's a comfort there in the fact that there's a plan, there's runway in place. And I would say, I was at a hotel recently as I was traveling with multiple offices, and I was talking to a person. He found out I was a financial advisor and owned a company. He said, all your clients should be in crypto. You should have all of them in crypto. And I thought, this guy doesn't know a thing about my clients, but is telling me how I should be investing for my clients.
Right.
And I think that's a good sort of cover of what we all get. I mean, we all, as soon as you mention something about retirement, someone's going to give you an unsolicited opinion. And remember, their puzzle isn't your puzzle. Their story isn't your story.
Yep.
And I think it's important that you speak to a professional. I may not be a genius, but we do this every single day. We do financial plans every single day. And this is what we love to do. This is what we're experts at. And we love to help people.
Right. And while it might be new to you, it's not new to you guys because you do this day in and day out.
Yeah. And maybe in a future episode can be about crypto or not. Probably not. But, all jokes aside, as we've said before, the relationships are a fun part for us. And helping, something like the Cliff Notes version of planning using this income approach in safety, income, and growth, we have these stories to tell. I've got Roger and Nancy, two of my clients, he's going to retire next summer. She just retired. But it's fun to plan for example, they went to Florida last year. There's a place called the Fountain of Youth. I don't remember where it was, but he sent me a picture. Roger said he was drinking a cup of water. He said, "This is me drinking from the Fountain of Youth. Thanks for what all you guys do." I know we talk numbers and all the, this esoteric stuff, but at the end of the day, it's that relationship element because there's the humanity to the money that where we strip back the money, strip back the rates of return and risk and all this to figure out what's the human element. We've said this before. What keeps you up at night, concerned as we're mapping out the next 30 years? What is getting you up in the morning excited? Is it the grandkids? Is it travel? Is it golf? Is it crypto like Chris and aliens? But that's when we figure those things out, that's where the pieces start to fit together more. And if we know what we're aiming for, that's how we're able to put those pieces together for your unique situation. And maybe you're at home, you've had a plan done, it hasn't been looked at in a while. Maybe you've been afraid to ask for a plan because you don't know the right questions to ask. And that's one of the things we take pride in is stripping back the layers and figuring out what makes you tick. And that's where I would say, and Chris would say, schedule a time. We'll do a complimentary financial compass review where we find out what your goals are and your dreams and what's next for you. How will you spend retirement? And we can start to put those pieces together. We can say, is your portfolio too risky? Is it not? Is it not aggressive enough? Are you going to have enough income? You want to retire in 2 years? Is that going to be a reality? Well, these are the things that we can start to map out. And it's, you can never get a second opinion from the person who gave you the first. So if you've had an opinion, let us give you the second one. And that's part of what our financial compass review is. But ultimately, it's the human element of let's partner up and be there with you each step of the way for the good and the bad times.
Well, I can say from knowing you all personally, your warmth and your dedication and your passion already set you apart in this space. And I know that so many people have been blessed to work with you, and I'm so excited for others who are going to connect with you. So Scott, Chris, thank you so much for being here and for putting together another valuable show. To our viewers at home, we so appreciate you watching. We hope you found it to be valuable for you. We encourage you, pick up the phone, call that number for your complimentary financial compass review, 888-970-4685. We love you, California. We look forward to being back with you next week.